This is Marianne Martindale from the Alliance for a Better Utah, and welcome to the Better Utah Beat. Senator Mike Lee was in the news this week as we learned that he was forced to sell his $1.1 million home in Utah at a $400,000 loss due to his inability to continue paying the mortgage. According to the news articles, he negotiated with J.P. Morgan Chase, the mortgage holder, to write off the $400,000 loss and accept a short sale of only $720,000. This hypocritical, if not corrupt situation should be raising red flags for Utahns of all political stripes. Why was a sitting senator able to get such a spectacular deal from his bank on his luxury home when so many hundreds, if not thousands, of everyday people across the state with modest homes have been unable to get any leniency from their banks when they find themselves in the same situation? We'll be digging deeper into this over the coming weeks, but for today, let's examine how Senator Lee's personal situation is a stark contrast to his political rhetoric. When Mr. Lee ran for the Senate, he campaigned on the idea of a balanced budget amendment, a talking point that continues to be the cornerstone of his political platform. He believes that the United States should manage its debt much like a family living only within its means. However, by Lee's own personal situation, that rhetoric often falls far short of reality. Economists across the country have warned that a balanced budget amendment would deal a tremendous blow to the United States' ability and capability to deal with emergency or unanticipated situations, such as a hurricane in the southern states, an unexpected war, or massive fires in the West. If the U.S. government is unable to draw upon its credit in times of crisis, citizens and individual states may quickly find themselves on their own and without relief. And it's not as if those situations don't arise frequently. Senator Lee and other conservatives in Utah love to point out Utah's balanced budget as an example upon which the United States should be modeling its own finances. But does Utah or any other state actually manage everything itself? Of course not. As the economy turned in 2008, Utah was able to avoid sliding into the red thanks in part to large new transportation projects, paid for with the $213 million Utah received in federal stimulus money. Were it not for that money coming from the feds, our economy could have fallen into a much deeper hole. You may recall the windstorm that swept much of northern Utah last year. Millions of dollars in damage was caused overnight, and once again, it was the U.S. government that came to our aid, sending the money to help clean up and rebuild. Even as recently as last week, Utah received yet another $1.5 million to help us clean dirty sites in Utah, encouraging new business development. Utah may have a balanced budget, and that certainly is commendable, but it is important to understand that we are only able to do so because of the ability to fall back on the federal government in these types of instances. Perhaps Senator Lee should remember that the federal government doesn't have a fallback option. A balanced budget amendment would do nothing but hang the states and the people of the nation out to dry, incapable of handling another Utah windstorm, Hurricane Katrina, or even another terrorist threat. Also in the news this week was a fun exchange in the Congressional District 4 race. Mia Love has been throwing the same barbs at Congressman Matheson that we see in Utah every 2 years. But something is striking us as a bit odd this time around. Love has built her platform, as expected, on the Tea Party line, never deviating from any of the go-to talking points, including the constant call for lower taxes. Let's just forget for a moment that currently, taxes in this country are the lowest they've been since before Reagan was in office. Ms. Love has been claiming over the past few weeks that in order to reduce the national debt, we must cut taxes. While it's nice rhetoric, as we review Ms. Love's record as both city council member and mayor of Saratoga Springs, it would seem she is trying to convince the voters of something she doesn't actually believe. A couple of years ago, Saratoga Springs was facing a rising deficit in much the same way that the United States is now. What was Ms. Love's solution? She increased taxes by 116%. Now, rhetoric is fun, and it's not uncommon for candidates to perhaps stretch their record a bit, but does she really expect the people of District 4 to forget so quickly that when faced with a real situation and not some hypothetical theory, Mia Love's best solution to a debt crisis was a massive tax increase? It's true that voters have a short memory these days, thanks to the internet and the 24-hour news cycle, but that doesn't seem like a detail voters will be likely to forget. And last, but certainly not least, the battle over the American Legislative Exchange Council, commonly referred to as ALEC, continues to heat up. If you're not familiar with ALEC, they are a national organization created and funded by large corporations and conservative billionaires like the Koch brothers, who create model legislation for state legislators that is designed to sway state governments in favor of corporate interests and to further an extreme conservative social agenda. In Utah, for example, we see their influence every legislative session in bills that push school vouchers, voter suppression, lax gun laws, and of course the unconstitutional land grab bills passed this year. ALEC is scheduled to hold their annual conference in Salt Lake City this summer, prompting responses from several local organizations. We at the Alliance for a Better Utah have launched the Kick ALEC Out project, an online resource for Utahns who want to discover the influence ALEC has in Utah, learn more about their various issues, and a tool to help you find out if your representative or senator is a member. For more information, visit kickalecout.org. We as Utahns place a high premium on our independence and our ability to think differently. The idea that outside influences bent on furthering their own corporate greed are influencing the bills our legislature is passing is something all Utahns should find unconscionable. We'll have much more on this story and the Kick ALEC Out campaign over the coming weeks as we work to ensure that members of the Utah State Legislature represent their constituents rather than corporate and special interests. Until next week, this is Marianne Martindale from the Alliance for a Better Utah with this week's edition of The Better Utah Beat. Have a great week, and remember that together we can make a better Utah.
For more info, please visit betterutah.org.